Kalgoorlie SuperPit is a terrifying man-made scar on the face of the Earth that is so massive you can actually see it from outer space. This giant canyon in Western Australia stretches 3.5 kilometers long and 1.5 kilometers wide, plunging over 600 meters deep into the desert floor. Every day, a fleet of steel monsters moves 200,000 tons of rock, all to find tiny flecks of gold hidden deep in the stone. This 24-hour operation is a masterpiece of modern engineering, but it hides a deadly secret beneath the ground. The entire pit sits on top of a crumbling 3,500-kilometer maze of old dark tunnels. How do engineers stop 500-ton trucks from being swallowed by a hidden underground trap? This golden story did not start with giant machines, but with 3 men and a few lucky rocks in June 1893. 3 Irish prospectors named Paddy Hannon, Thomas Flanagan and Dan O'Shea were travelling through the dry red desert when they found gold sitting right on the surface. This spot became known as the Golden Mile because it was the richest square mile of gold ever found on the planet. For nearly 100 years, the area was a messy collection of over 80 small mines owned by different companies. By the year 1903, the ground was studded with 100 tall wooden towers used to lower miners into the deep, dark earth. But as the easy gold near the surface disappeared, these small mines began to struggle and fail. In the 1980s, a businessman named Alan Bond had a bold and risky vision. He wanted to buy every single one of those small competing mines and combine them into one massive open pit. He faced many arguments and rivalries from owners who did not want to sell, but by 1989, his dream became a reality. This was the birth of Kalgoorlie Consolidated Gold Mines. By joining everything together, engineers could use giant machines to dig up rock that was once too expensive to reach. Today, the mine is 100% Australian-owned by Northern Star Resources, and the company is digging deeper than ever before. But how do you safely dig a hole this big when the ground underneath you is already full of holes? The biggest engineering nightmare at the SuperPit is what experts call the honeycomb effect. Because people have been digging here for over 130 years, the ground is like a giant piece of Swiss cheese. There are over 3,500 kilometers of old, empty tunnels and shafts hidden beneath the pit floor, with some going as deep as 1,200 meters. If you took all those tunnels and stretched them out in a straight line, they would reach almost all the way across Australia. This is a huge problem because a modern mining truck is incredibly heavy. When a truck carrying 240 tons of rock drives over a hidden, empty tunnel, the ground can suddenly cave in like a trapdoor. To keep workers safe, engineers have to act like high-tech detectives. They start by looking at very old paper maps from the 1800s to see where people used to dig with shovels. But because those old maps are not always right, they use advanced laser scanners. They lower a laser into a hole and it bounces light off the walls to create a 3D map of the empty space. Once they know where a tunnel is, they add it to a digital map so the drivers know exactly which spots are dangerous. If the lasers find a hole that is too big to drive over, engineers have to fill it with rocks or plan a new road around it. But what happens if the ground is so weak that even a person cannot stand on it? In the most high-risk areas, the mine employs a rule known as no feet on the ground. This means no humans are allowed to stand near the danger. Instead, they use remote control machines. An operator sits in a safe room far away and uses a screen and joysticks to move the drills and shovels, just like playing a very expensive video game. They even use long-reach drills with extra long arms that can reach out over a dangerous spot, while the heavy base of the machine stays on solid, safe ground. Think of it like using a long stick to reach a toy under a couch while you stay safely on the rug. This clever engineering keeps the machines working without ever putting a human life at risk. But it is not just the floor of the pit that causes problems. What happens when the very walls of the pit start to move? Because the hole is so deep, the weight of the rock at the top is always trying to push the walls inward. In May 2018, the eastern wall of the pit suffered a massive disaster. More than 1 million tons of rock suddenly dislodged and came crashing down to the pit floor. That is enough rock to fill over 400 Olympic-sized swimming pools. The energy of that fall was so strong it felt like a small earthquake. If the engineers had not been watching, the results could have been much worse. To stop this from happening again, Engineers use slope stability radar. These machines scan the walls every minute of every day, looking for tiny movements as small as a few millimeters. It works by bouncing radio waves off the rock and measuring how long they take to come back. If the wall moves even a tiny bit, the computer knows immediately. An alarm sounds and every worker must leave the pit immediately. They also use special trim blasts to make the walls smooth and strong. A smooth wall is much harder to break than a rough one, which helps prevent loose rocks from shaking loose during the day. If you think the pit is big, wait until you see the machines that work inside it. These are not your average construction trucks. The king of the pit is the Caterpillar 793 haul truck. This machine is a mechanical beast. It is 13 meters long and over 6 meters tall. If you parked one of these trucks next to a normal 2-story house, the truck would be taller than the roof. The tires alone are 3.7 meters tall, which is twice as tall as an average adult man. Just one of these tires costs about $50,000 to replace. To move its massive weight, the truck uses a giant engine with 2,650 horsepower. When one of these trucks is fully loaded with rock, it weighs over 404,000 kilograms. That is the same as 200 large cars all piled into one single vehicle. Because they are so big, they have huge blind spots, so they are covered in cameras and sensors. Many of these trucks are now autonomous, meaning they utilize GPS and specialized sensors to navigate the mine without a human driver in the cab. They follow a digital path and stop automatically if they sense anything in their way. This makes the mine safer and helps the trucks run without ever needing a lunch break. But how do you fill a truck that is the size of a house? You need an even bigger shovel. The mine uses the Komatsu PC 8000. This machine is one of the largest in the world, weighing a staggering 773,000 kilograms. Its front bucket is so big it can hold 42 cubic meters of rock in just one scoop. To help you understand that size, one single scoop from this shovel could fill up an entire bedroom from the floor all the way to the ceiling. It only takes 3 or 4 scoops from this giant shovel to fill one of those massive Caterpillar trucks. These machines never stop, working 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, to keep the gold flowing. But even the world's biggest shovels cannot pick up solid rock. So how do they break the mountain apart? First, the rock has to be broken into smaller pieces using massive explosions. Because the mine is right next to the town of Kalgoorlie Boulder, engineers have to be incredibly careful with their blasting. They do not want to shake people's houses or send dust into the air. They use a special explosive called ANFO, which is a mix of fertilizer and fuel oil. It looks like small white beads and is very safe to handle until it is triggered. If the ground is wet, they use a waterproof explosive gel called emulsion. Engineers drill patterns of holes that are about 12 meters deep and fill them with these explosives. Then, they use electronic timers to make the holes explode one by one, just milliseconds apart. This turns one big scary blast into a series of smaller vibrations that break the rock perfectly without hurting the town. They even put crushed rock on top of the holes to act like a cork in a bottle, which forces all the energy sideways into the hard rock. Now that the rock is broken and moved to the surface, how do we actually find the gold when it is too small to see? This is where the chemistry magic happens. The gold in the SuperPit is very tiny and hidden deep inside the stone. Most of the rock has only about 1 or 2 grams of gold for every 1,000 kilograms of stone. That means you could hold a giant rock the size of a refrigerator and never see a single speck of gold with your eyes. To get it out, the rock goes to the Fimiston mill, where it is smashed into pieces the size of a fist. Then it goes into giant rotating steel drums called SAG mills. These drums are full of heavy steel balls that roll around and crush the rock into a powder as fine as flour. To get the gold out of this powder, engineers use a clever trick called carbon in leach. They mix the powder with water and a chemical called cyanide to dissolve the gold. You can think of this just like making a cup of tea. When you put a tea bag in hot water, the flavor of the tea dissolves into the liquid, but the leaves stay solid. In the mine, the gold dissolves into the liquid, leaving the waste rock behind. Then, they add pieces of activated carbon, which are like tiny charcoal sponges. The gold sticks to the carbon, and then engineers can pull the carbon out and melt the gold into heavy, pure bars. But what does this massive operation mean for the people and the future of Australia? The SuperPit is a massive business and a part of the local community. In 2025, Northern Star Resources made over $6.4 billion in revenue from its mines. They are currently spending $1.5 billion to make the gold processing factory even bigger so they can process 27 million tons of rock every year. While the mine brings a lot of money and 1,600 jobs to the area, it also faces criticism. Some people who live nearby worry about the loud noise of the trucks and the dust in the air. To help, the mine built a giant wall of rock called a noise bund that is 20 meters high and 6 kilometers long to block the sound. They also use huge water trucks to spray the roads and keep the dust down. Even with these challenges, the mine has a long future, with plans to keep digging until at least 2034, and some think it could stay open until the year 2050. The Kalgoorlie SuperPit is more than just a giant hole. It is a monument to what human beings can build when they use the world's biggest machines and smartest science. Share your thoughts below on whether you would ever want to drive one of those 400-ton trucks. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more engineering stories. We'll see you in the next one.